Hey guys, Brad from SimpleGuitar.com here, and have you ever wondered why your playing doesn't sound as good as your favorite guitar players, even if you play all the right notes? What is it that makes great guitar players great, and how do you get that even when you're just starting out playing guitar? The answer, my friends, is phrasing. And it has a lot more to do with how you play than what you play. And today I'm going to go over some of the very basics of phrasing so that you can start developing better phrasing and making your playing sound better, even if you're just getting started. Now, one of the big things that I want you to think about is that playing guitar can be broken down into two areas. There's what you play, the notes, the scales, the chords, the arpeggios, the songs that you play, what you play. And that's important. But there's also how you play what you play. And that is going to be our focus today. We're going to be more focused on how you play the things that you play than what it is that you play. Because even if you're playing the same notes as your favorite guitar player, it's going to sound drastically different if your phrasing isn't on the same level. Most guitar players spend all their time focused on what they play. I need to learn more scales. I need to learn more chords. I need to learn more songs. And these are good. You do need to learn scales and chords and songs, and you need to keep pushing yourself and trying to learn those things. But at the same time, you need to be more worried about playing what you can play better. If you think about it, the thing that really moves you when you listen to your very favorite guitar players isn't so much the notes that they play. Sure, that has a huge impact, but that's not it. The thing that moves people and inspires you when you hear a great guitar player is how they play what they play. So what are some of the basic elements of phrasing? Well, when it comes to phrasing, what we're going to be worried about mainly is playing lead guitar. And phrasing is how you play the notes that you play and how you change between notes that you play. So what are some of the different phrasing elements that you can use? Well, there's tons. And the more that you listen to your favorite guitar players and listen to different guitar players and different styles of music, you're going to find all kinds of different types of phrasing elements that you can learn and take into your own playing so that you can sound awesome. That's the amazing thing about phrasing is what takes your playing and makes it sound like you. Phrasing is what humanizes the guitar player. It's what makes your guitar playing sound human and intense and emotional and something worth listening to. If we take phrasing out of guitar playing, it's really boring. So while there are tons and tons of different phrasing elements you can use, when you're starting out, here are some of the basic ones for you to get started with. 1. Hammer-ons and pull-offs. Hammer-ons and pull-offs are also called legato playing. And that is a term that means that you're playing smoothly from one note to the next note. So instead of your notes being disjointed like this, your notes connect because what you do is you play a lower note and then you use another finger on your fretting hand. In this case, I'm going to use my third finger. And you hammer your finger onto that string so that the vibration of the string never stops. The lower note is vibrating, and then you place your finger down on the string fast enough that the string continues to vibrate on the new fret, and it sounds nice and smooth like this. That's a hammer-on. A pull-off is the exact opposite. You're going to play a higher note and pull your finger off fast enough that the string will continue to vibrate and we'll hear the lower note that you're holding with another finger, like this. Now, when you tie these together, you can get some pretty cool sounding things. Like this, I'm only going to pick each string one time, but I'm going to hammer on to the other notes so it sounds smooth. And you can do that coming down. So adding hammer-ons and pull-offs into your phrasing is going to give you a tool that you can use to take the notes that you play and play them differently so that they sound better and so that they move people and inspire them. 2, slides. Slides, there are lots of different kinds of slides. but we aren't going to get into the details of that right now. Basically, a slide is when you play one note and slide up or down into another note, like this. Slides are a way that we transition from one note to another, and it also sounds smoother than if we just play like this. So when we slide between notes, it gives us a cool effect that we can use to change the emotion of what we're playing so it's more impactful on the listener. Just these two things, using hammer-ons and pull-offs so far, are great for you to be able to start adding a little bit of phrasing to scales that you're learning and changing between things. And it gives you some really cool options because you don't have to just do a slide or hammer-on or pull-off. You can combine them. You can do a hammer-on and then a slide and then a pull-off. And then, you can stack these one after another and even on top of each other, because you could slide into a note and do a pull-off right away. And you can get all sorts of cool sounds and get creative with how you play your notes instead of playing different notes. 3, bends. Bending strings is fun. And if you listen to blues or blues-based rock, you're going to hear bends all the time because they're awesome. What a bend is when you play a note and you bend your string by either pulling your string toward the floor like this, or pushing your string up to the ceiling like this. Either way, no matter which direction you move your string, you're changing the pitch of your string. So whether you're pulling down or pushing up, no matter what you do, when you bend a note, you're bending into another note. Now, there are lots of really cool things that you can do with bends. You can do stuff like pre-bends, where you bend the string before you actually play it. And so you hear the note coming down instead of going up. You can do all sorts of cool things. Bends are awesome. But the thing to keep in mind is that when you're bending a note, you want to make sure that you're bending it to another note that's going to sound good. So whatever scale you're playing, there are going to be notes that sound good bent, and there are going to be notes that don't sound good bent. So pay attention to that and make sure that when you're doing it, you're using your ears and paying attention to the sound and not just bending indiscriminately and whatever it sounds like is whatever. You can control that. It's up to you, but you have to listen. Number 4, vibrato. Vibrato is the most expressive thing that we can do on the guitar. It sounds amazing. It's also the hallmark of great musicians that play other instruments, like Louis Armstrong had an amazing vibrato as a trumpet player, or you'll hear amazing vibrato from singers. Vibrato is the modulation of going from one pitch to another and back and forth in a rapid succession. So just like when we bend a note, we bend the string up to another note, right? Vibrato is doing that over and over and over and doing it rather quickly like this. And when we have good vibrato, we can make our playing really expressive, really emotional, and it affects people, man. There are times that you will hit a note and add some vibrato to it, and people will cry. People will be moved. People will be inspired by that note. Vibrato is the most expressive thing that we can do. So it's important that you learn how to master it, because there are people that have good vibrato on the guitar and there are people with some terrible vibrato on the guitar. Yeah, even legendary guitar players that there are some that I don't think have good vibrato. So when it comes to developing your vibrato, it's very important that you learn to control it and that you use your ears. I was just saying to a student yesterday that vibrato is 98% about listening and only 2% about what you do with your hands. So while there is technique involved with your hands, it's most important that you're listening to your vibrato and that it is controlled. A lot of beginners, when they start doing vibrato, they do it just kind of willy-nilly and they just shake the string and it doesn't sound good. It sounds like a bumblebee or a goat or something. You want to make sure that you develop control over your vibrato and that you can do it on purpose and not just by default. The way to do that is to practice your vibrato very slowly. So you take a note like this, and you practice vibrato very, very slowly like this. And you practice pulling the string down to the floor, because when you're playing on your lower strings, that's how you're going to have to do vibrato. And you practice pushing your vibrato up towards the ceiling, doing your bends pushing up. Because when you're on your first string, you can't pull that string down. Otherwise, your string comes off the fretboard, okay? So practice your vibrato both ways. Practice it pushing, practice it pulling, and practice it really slow. Those basics will get you going on your way to developing a good vibrato. Number 5, articulation. Articulation is how loud or how soft you pick a note. If all the notes that you pick are picked at the same intensity and the same dynamic level, they're the same volume, then it's going to get kind of boring after a while. What you do is you want to vary if you're picking notes hard or you're picking notes soft, and you want to have control over that and do it on purpose. For example, if I just play this, that sounds kind of boring, but if I play some notes softer, you can add some interest by playing notes softer and playing notes louder. Number 6, rhythm. Rhythm is the number one most underrated, underappreciated element about guitar playing, period. So what I mean by rhythm in your phrasing is the rhythm that you choose to play your different notes at. A lot of guitar players will use the same rhythm over and over and over. And what you need to do is you need to vary the types of rhythms that you use. It's not just about playing notes back to back to back to back to back and having a constant stream of notes. You need to make sure that you rest, that there's space between notes, that you play longer notes, that you play shorter notes, that there are faster rhythms, that there are slower rhythms. And if you already understand what some different rhythms are, you can really change it up by, instead of just playing eighth notes all the time, throwing in quarter notes and half notes, and throwing in 16th notes and triplets and 16th note triplets and quintuplets and all sorts of fun stuff. Changing up your rhythm without changing anything else can make your playing way more interesting. So think about that when you're thinking about phrasing is, am I playing the same rhythm all the time, or what can I do to play a better rhythm? Number 7, double stops. This is one of the things that I think a lot of beginners should start out playing right away, because it makes it easier to play your F chord. Everybody hates F, right? This will help you. So double stops are when you play 2 strings at a time instead of just 1 string at a time. And to do that, you have to get used to laying your finger down flat and covering 2 strings instead of just 1. For example, if I play this, that's kind of boring. But if I do this, then it gets way more interesting. Again, like any phrasing element, you don't want to just use this indiscriminately and use it constantly. If you use something constantly, it loses any value of specialness. You want to throw double stops in once in a while because they can add aggression and intensity to what you're doing, which sounds awesome. So you don't want to just play them all the time and play everything with double stops, okay? But here's the cool thing. When you are playing double stops, you are working on the same technique that your first finger needs to play 2 strings at a time to be able to make your F chord down here. So if you're working on these double stops, especially with your first finger, then it's going to sound awesome and it's going to make that F chord easier. That's a hidden benefit of double stops. Number 8, your note range. Now, what I mean by note range is how high and how low you're playing. If all the notes that you play, if you're trying to solo with your buddies and you're jamming, and all the notes that you play are up in the same range, meaning everything you play is right here, and nothing changes, you never go lower, everything that you play the whole time is right there, That's going to get really boring after a while. So you want to make sure that you're playing higher notes, notes more in the middle range, and lower notes. And you can manipulate that to build emotion in your playing. If you start low at the beginning of a solo and then move higher, it gets a little bit more intense. And then you get to the bigger part, the bigger climactic part of your solo, and you go even higher, it gets more intense. You can use note range as part of your phrasing to help impact how your playing affects the listener. It's really, really simple. It's really easy, but just make sure that you're playing lower notes and higher notes and not just sticking in the same place all the time. Number 9, palm muting. Now, this is one of my favorite techniques. I've even got beginner students doing palm muting with power chords. It's super handy, but you can use this when you're playing solos and scales and use it as part of your phrasing as well. Because if you take notes that you're playing, it'll totally change the feel of whatever it is that you're playing. And you combine that with the contrast of having notes that aren't muted. And it has a much bigger impact and it makes your phrasing sound cool. Number 10, tremolo. Now, tremolo picking, or as one of my students lovingly called it all the time, tremolo. It's tremolo. That just makes me laugh. Tremolo picking is when you're picking alternate picking. So you're picking down, up, down, up, down, up, really, really, really fast as you can. So you take a note and you go like this. As fast as you can. This actually does get used in guitar solos. For example, I have a lot of students that play The Middle by Jimmy Eat World because it's super easy to play right away with one finger. Seriously, from day one, it's awesome. I'll do a video on that later. And in the guitar solo for that song, there is actually a tremolo picking passage at the very end, where what you're doing is this. And it sounds awesome. So tremolo picking gives you the ability to pick a note over and over and over and over and give it a different sound. So you can accent different notes by using tremolo picking in your phrasing. Number 11, double and triple picking. While we're on the topic of picking, let's talk about double picking and triple picking. These are cool because instead of just picking a note one time, something that I see a lot of students do when they're starting out to play solos and scales is they pick one note and move to the next note and move to the next note. You can double pick notes, you can triple pick notes, and you can do that quickly, you can do it slowly. If I play single notes for this passage, it sounds like this. But if I double pick it, I'm gonna pick each note twice. Different sound. If I triple pick it, I do the same thing, only thrice. So double picking and triple picking can be a really cool device that you use to enhance your phrasing and make it sound cooler. Okay, number 12, this is the last one that we're gonna do today. This is a trill. Now, when we talked about tremolo picking is when you pick a note over and over, right? A trill is sort of the same thing, except it's more like a hammer-on and a pull-off in rapid succession. So it's more like this. So trills are another thing that you can use to accent a note, and it gives a different sound than just picking that note all by itself. And the way that you do it, you pick a lower note, and then you hammer on and pull off really quickly on another note. And that way you get that cool trill sound and you can use that to enhance your phrasing. Something that I want you to keep in mind is that when you first start doing these phrasing elements, it's not gonna be good. It's not gonna sound great. Expect that. That's okay because everybody starts from the same place, okay? But anything worth doing is worth doing poorly to get started. So it's okay if you start doing vibrato and your vibrato sounds like garbage. That's normal. My vibrato sounded like garbage when I first started doing it. That's how it goes, okay? but it's worth doing it and getting going on it and working on it in the beginning so that it gets better as you go. Now, how do you find great phrasing ideas? Because this is just 12 things that you could start to implement right now. Now, the way that you find great phrasing ideas is listen to great guitar players that have awesome phrasing. And when you're listening to these great guitar players, pay attention to how they play what they play. How do they get from one note to another? How do they make one note stand out from the rest? And then on top of that, go and learn the guitar solos of your favorite guitar players. This is one way that you pick up their vocabulary, you learn their licks, you learn their phrasing, and then you take that, internalize it, and make it your own. And when you combine your influences from all your different favorite guitar players and the solos that you learn, that is what making it your own is all about. But you can't make something your own if you don't have anything to start with. So don't be afraid to go learn more guitar solos by your favorite guitar players, and don't think that it's outside your reach. One thing that I have seen hold a lot of students back, including myself when I taught myself for years, is thinking that's too hard, I can't do that. And I'll tell you what, nothing is too hard, because if someone else can do it, you can do it. If you put in the work and the effort, you can get. So go learn more solos, learn and pay attention to the phrasing that your favorite guitar players are using, and start doing it right away. Phrasing is awesome, and it's the number one thing that's going to make you sound awesome and make you stand out from a lot of other guitar players. So I hope that helps with phrasing. Phrasing is awesome. It sounds cool when you do it, and it's something that you need to start working on right away, because this is what sets great guitar players apart, is their phrasing. I do have a free gift for you though. If you go to my website at simpleguitar.com/top10, there I have a guide for you called the top 10 things to learn on guitar first. Now this guide is designed to take you from feeling like a total beginner player to feeling like a confident player that impresses your friends every time you play guitar. So go pick up that guide. It's totally free, simpleguitar.com/top10, and I will see you guys in the next video.